Assalamualaikum, Salam Malaysia Madani. Biz Malaysia petang ini bersama-sama saya, Otto Othman. Biz Malaysia bersiaran setiap Isnin hingga Khamis menerusi saluran Berita RTM dan TV1 selain Facebook Live dan YouTube Biz Malaysia. Setiap Khamis, Biz Malaysia menampilkan segmen Biz ASEAN bagi membincangkan pelbagai isu berkaitan ekonomi serantau bersempena Kepengurusian ASEAN Malaysia 2025. Pemukiman Menteri Ekonomi ASEAN AEM ke-31 pada minggu lepas telah melakar pencapaian penting dengan menyokong pelbagai inisiatif ekonomi. Ia termasuk kesemua 18 Keberhasilan Utama Ekonomi atau PED yang menjadi kunci dalam mencapai aspirasi Komuniti Ekonomi Asean AEC. Pencapaian itu jelas mencerminkan komitmen bersama negara ASEAN Tenggara untuk memperkukuh integrasi ekonomi serantau, meningkatkan keterangkuman, memperkasakan kemampanan dan merangsang perdagangan digital di ASEAN. Bagi memahami inisiatif berkenaan serta memanfaatnya kepada rantau ini, Biz ASEAN petang ini membawakan kementerian yang bertanggungjawab dalam usaha berkaitan seketika nanti. Tetapi sebelum itu, kita tinjau terlebih dahulu pergerakan pasaran saham ASEAN dan Remiser.
Pasaran ASEAN dibuka lebih baik pagi ini. Pertama kita lihat FMKSI di mana ianya dibuka tinggi pada paras 1568 mata sebelum ianya mereda ke 1556 mata. Di Singapura STI kita lihat juga ianya dibuka tinggi pada kadar 3926 mata, peningkatan sebanyak 28 mata ataupun lebih kurang 0.72%. Di Indonesia JCI ianya dibuka tinggi pada kadar 6531.4 mata, peningkatan 151 mata ataupun peningkatan lebih kurang 2.37%. Di Filipina juga ianya kita lihat pasaran juga dibuka pada kadar tinggi pada kadar 6167.89 mata, peningkatan 46.12 mata ataupun peningkatan sebanyak 0.75%. Di Vietnam ianya kita lihat ianya dibuka mendatar pada kadar 1305 mata, tidak bergerak, dan di Laos kita lihat ianya dibuka tinggi pada kadar 1134 mata, peningkatan sebanyak 2 mata ataupun 0.18%. Okey, ini apa yang sedikit yang saya boleh kongsikan setakat ini.
Baik, menyusul seketika nanti kupasan topik Biz ASEAN.
Glosari ASEAN. Glosari ASEAN.
So by working together, we have better negotiating leverage with our trading and investment partners to foster innovation and then build our member states' capacity. So this is really key to creating a sustainable and resilient economic framework.
ASEAN is the fifth largest economy in the world, with a combined gross domestic product (GDP) worth $3.7 trillion. Shaping the future of Southeast Asia and beyond is ASEAN's 18 Priority Economic Deliverables, or PEDs. Now, with the exact these PEDs, all right, picture this: they serve as the blueprint driving economic integration among the 10 ASEAN member states. Now, but hold on. Well, while we all know that the economic integration is not a new concept, the real question is, how do we turn these initiatives into tangible results? And how do we unlock the immense potential that ASEAN holds? Now, that's where the success of ASEAN Economic Ministers Meeting, or AEM, comes into play. Now, just last month, in a collaborative display of diplomacy and also mutual interest, the AEM brought together economic ministers from across the region, and they didn't just talk, they finalized agreements. So why should all of this matter to you, the viewers? Whether you're a business owner looking to probably expand your business, an investor probably searching for new horizons, or simply an engaged citizen keen on understanding the forces shaping your world. Now, this topic holds relevance right now. So the ongoing economic integration in ASEAN is set to impact lives and livelihoods, bridging gaps, and also create a market of over 600 million people. So to delve deeper into what recent success of the AEM, we have the Senior Director of the ASEAN Economic Integration Division at the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, MITI, Dr. SUGUMARI S.SHANMUGAN in the studios. Well, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you.
Now, Doctor, without further ado, we move on to the first question that we have over here. Now, it comes to the 31st AEM retreat was held on the 28th of February 2025. Can you share with us the role and importance of the AEM retreat and some key highlights discussed among AEM during the meeting?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So in terms of the role and importance of this AEM retreat, the term retreat itself gives you the connotation of a very laid-back situation. This is where the ministers had very frank discussions, open and also productive discussions in areas related to the ASEAN economic integration. So what I meant here is that they look into how do you further deepen ASEAN economic integration? What are the challenges faced by ASEAN? What needs to be done? So all these actually takes into account the critical mega trends that we face in the world today. So in terms of geopolitical tensions, demographic shifts, digital transformation, these are the areas that they took into account, and they had a very frank discussion on how do we move forward to that. So how do we deepen ASEAN economic integration? How do we have an inclusive and sustainable ASEAN? So these are the discussions that the ASEAN economic ministers had. And in terms of the highlights of the retreat, one of the main highlights, as everyone knows, is basically on the 18 priority economic deliverables. So just a bit about the 18 priority economic deliverables. It was something that we, Malaysia, specifically MITI, developed, taking into account what the previous chairs have done, and also the mega trends that we face today. Mm-hmm. So this priority economic deliverables was actually developed during the meeting, and it was endorsed by the ASEAN economic ministers, 9 of it which is under their purview, and another 9 would be endorsed by the sectoral bodies. So that is the good part of it. And what is important, once we endorse and announce, it's set for implementation. So it's a 1-year target. So within this chairmanship, Malaysia as the chair will have to ensure that it is implemented. The other areas that the ASEAN economic ministers actually dwelt about is on the ASEAN Economic Community Strategic Plan.
Well, that's very interesting, Doctor, and definitely we'll delve into that in just a bit, but we're going to go for a little short break, and when we come back, we're going to delve deeper into the PEDs and AEM. Stay tuned.
Yang cemerlang seorang kanak-kanak bergantung kepada pemilihan makanan yang berkhasiat dan kaya dengan nutrien.
Adik-adik, jom belajar cara melintas. Lihat kiri, kanan, kiri sebelum melintas. Membantu pelajar melintas dan pastikan pelajar selamat sampai. Jangan tiru pemanduan seperti ini. Contohi pemanduan dan peraturan dengan berhemah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت سيدنا محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والشرف والدرجة العالية الرفيعة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Wanita beraspirasi membina legasi. Saksikan sambutan Hari Wanita Antarabangsa 2025 dirasmikan oleh Perdana Menteri Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim secara langsung dari Dewan Merdeka Pusat Dagangan Dunia WTC pada 8 Mac 2025 Sabtu 2.15 petang hanya di TV1, saluran Berita RTM dan RTM Klik.
Welcome back to Biz ASEAN. Now we have in the studio today the Senior Director of the ASEAN Economic Integration Division at the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, MITI, Dr. SUGUMARI S.SHANMUGAN, and we're talking about the AEC and Priority Economic Deliverers PED 2025. Once again, Doctor, thank you so much for coming to the studio. So you were highlighting about the highlights of the whole meeting. Can you tell us a bit more on the highlights?
Okay, apart from the Priority Economic Deliverables, there is also the ASEAN Economic Community Strategic Plan. Actually, this strategic plan is a 5-year plan that we have developed under the economic pillar. And this will be launched together with the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 that Malaysia will launch during the ASEAN Summit, 46th ASEAN Summit, where the leaders will meet. So, apart from the AEC Blue strategic plan, we also will launch other strategic plans from the social, the political pillar, as well as interconnectivity. So this is something that is very, very meaningful, because when we hosted the ASEAN chairmanship in 2015, we actually launched the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint. So after 10 years, again, during our Malaysia's chairmanship, we are actually launching the ASEAN Community Vision, and specifically for the economic pillar is the ASEAN Economic Community Strategic Plan. So this is something very meaningful for Malaysia. Apart from that, there were also various discussions on how do you enhance our relations with dialogue partners, new dialogue partners. So we also touched about the ASEAN GCC Summit that will be held during the Leaders Summit in May, as well as the ASEAN GCC China Summit. And of course, the very important news that is going on for these few days is in terms of the Timor-Leste accession into ASEAN. So that was also discussed during the AM retreat on how do we facilitate for the economic pillar to ensure that Timor-Leste will be able to accede into ASEAN.
It's great that we see Timor-Leste also intrigued in this whole ASEAN meeting. Now, second question, Malaysia's priority on economic deliverables, or PEDs 2025, were among the key items endorsed by the AEM during the retreat. Now, can you share with us the significance of PED of ASEAN under the economic pillars?
Okay, just let me give you a bit of a background. When we develop the PEDs, basically every chair of ASEAN will come up with their own respective PEDs. So for Malaysia, we came up with 18. And these PEDs are well thought of, where we had various stakeholder consultation. And in developing these PEDs, as mentioned, we have actually taken into account previous chairs' PEDs, as well as the mega trends, so that when you develop a PED, it should be something of high impact, something that's implementable within the year, and something that is meaningful for ASEAN integration. So the PEDs that we Malaysia developed, basically is in line with 4 strategic thrusts. One is in terms of enhancing trade and investment.
Yep.
And in terms of enhancing trade and investment, what we look at is how do we further integrate trade within ASEAN. That's very important. So we are actually discussing more on the ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement upgrade. So the negotiations is going on, and hopefully by the end of, possibly when the leaders meet, we would be able to sign those agreements. And also we look into agreements that are important with our dialogue partners, for example, with India, China, and also coming up with a declaration for ASEAN GCC cooperation. So this is the first strategic thrust. And then in terms of the second strategic thrust we look at is coming up with creating an inclusive and sustainable pathway. When you talk about inclusive and sustainable pathway, how do you move forward as ASEAN? So we had a number of PEDs under that touches on the energy aspect, on basically on minerals. We also have sustainable investment guidelines, tourism, economic impact of it, and various other PEDs under that. And then we also have the third strategic thrust, where we promote interconnectivity. And this strategic thrust, we touch on areas like electric vehicle, semiconductors. So lastly, for the fourth strategic thrust is building a digitally resilient ASEAN. So when you talk about digitally resilient ASEAN, the very, very important agreement that is being talked about is basically on DEFA, Digital Economic Framework Agreement. So this is it will be a landmark agreement once we substantially conclude it. Why I mean substantially conclude? Because this agreement is very important for ASEAN to move forward towards economic integration. Digital transformation is one of it.
Yes.
Yes. So there are ongoing negotiations on that, and we hope to conclude that substantially by this year.
Now, Doctor, it is very overwhelming as well that seeing that all of us as a whole, as ASEAN, there's more than 600 million people in the whole ASEAN region, we have so much interesting to share. And I do believe one of the statements that our minister, MITI, did talk about is that all of us had a lot of different views and different opportunities as well to discuss, which is why it's taking a long time to actually delve into the agreements. Now, with that, moving on to the next question, AEM, right, has endorsed 18 PEDs, just like what you said, under the Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN 2025. Now, can you share with us some of the key PEDs that Malaysia aims to complete in 2025, and what are the benefits that these PEDs to ASEAN?
Okay. Actually, all the 18 PEDs, we have to complete it by this year.
Wow.
Yes, so that's what I meant. When you develop a PED, it has to be well thought of, and it has to be completed by this year. So we hope that we do not carry forward any PEDs next year towards Philippines chairmanship. So that's very important. So in coming up with this PED, as you rightly mentioned, there was a lot of discussions on it, and it's important to note that the ASEAN economic ministers have actually endorsed that and fully support our PEDs with the hope that we can implement it this year. So all works will go towards implementation this year. And if I may touch on a few PEDs, one of it is Artiga, as I mentioned. ATIGA is basically ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement. So we had this agreement previously, and now we're upgrading this agreement. So when I mentioned about upgrading the agreement, it's important for us to take into account what is actually happening now. So how do you modernize the agreement to suit the intra-ASEAN trade? So how do you ease business? How do you look into facilitating custom procedures, further facilitating? And then how do you take into account the recent emerging areas that we need to take into account? So these are all discussions that is ongoing, and we hope through this ATIGA we will further increase intra-ASEAN trade. Currently, if I'm not mistaken, intra-ASEAN trade is around 22.1%. So with what is happening around the world, instead of depending on other markets, we should further enhance intra-ASEAN market. So that's why this agreement is very, very important. And then the other agreement I want to touch about, I think, where everyone is looking forward for its conclusion or substantial conclusion, is the Digital Economic Framework Agreement. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a landmark agreement. There's never such an agreement before. But what is important in this agreement, if you know, digital transformation is subject to further, it's important for further integration of economies. And as you know, the level of development within ASEAN is different. We have the ASEAN 6, the original 6, and then we have the other 4 ASEAN member countries. So the level of development is different, especially in terms of digital. But by having this agreement, we hope to have a much closer gap between these ASEAN member countries. And it's important. It's very challenging to get everyone to agree to a few of the terms, but what is important with this agreement, we can actually move together as ASEAN.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that is very, very, very important. And there's a lot of, the ministers actually had very extensive discussion during the retreat on this.
I can imagine.
So how do you face these challenges? So the challenges was highlighted to the ministers, and there were several policy guidance given on how do we move forward. So we hope that through this agreement also there will be some form of tiered approach possibly, so that at least for ASEAN member countries, what we can do, we do it together. If not, we will try to find ways on how some of us can move forward first. But this is all being discussed. And it's very important for us as ASEAN to ensure that our market is fully integrated to single market. We need to have this agreement. So I really hope that we would have this substantial conclusion by end of this year.
End of this year.
Yes.
And we have like 300 days left before the end of the year. Exactly 300 days left before the end of the year. And seeing that we already have a couple of meetings done already.
Yep.
And the intensity of these meetings and the agreements, finalizing the agreements with all the cultures and all the, like what you said, development is different from other ASEAN countries as well and member states. So having the retreat could be like just a buffer for making a conclusion towards the agreement that we are going to take, which is the 18 PEDs. Now, moving on, Doctor, what about endorsed the 18 PEDs? Can you share some of the challenges and opportunities when it comes to this, and that Malaysia foresees in implementing these PEDs?
Okay, the challenges, I think one of this quite glaring would be the different levels of development. So when you have different level of development, you need more capacity building, you need more sharing of knowledge. So that is why once this PEDs has been endorsed, there's a lot of work ongoing. Actually, even previously, before we came out with the PEDs, a lot of work has been ongoing on our PEDs. So after this, the technical level meetings will happen, the senior economic official meetings will happen. That's where we will discuss and see how we can address all the challenges that we face in ensuring the completion of these PEDs. And for example, there are some PEDs, I think, by May, during the Leaders Summit, we can already see it. For example, the Joint Declaration on ASEAN-GCC Economic Cooperation. This is something that we aim to announce during the Leaders Summit in May. So work is ongoing towards that. And there are some that we hope by end of the year, during the Economic Ministers meeting, AEM proper meeting in September, we will have those PEDs finalized. For example, the conclusion and signing of ATIGA. We hope to have it by end of the year, by end of September. And also, of course, the upgrade 3.0 ASEAN-China FTA, we hope to sign during the Leaders Summit in October. So work is ongoing. That the challenges will always be there, but with the positive attitude and the support that we receive from ASEAN member countries, we hope to actually finalize those PEDs. The other challenge I see is in terms of the regulation and harmonization of certain policies within ASEAN member countries. So, for example, when you move towards signing of an agreement, we have to go through several procedures. So that may take long by some ASEAN member countries. So these are challenges that we foresee, but we hope this can be addressed with the strong support we receive.
Mm-hmm. Now, seeing that the challenges that are there, you've been through some of the meetings. How did you foresee everything, oversee everything? Was it in a good sense of chairmanship, and was it everybody was in high spirits in concluding certain finalization of agreements? How do you see it?
Okay, basically. Even before the ministers endorsed, as I mentioned, there's a lot of work being undertaken even since last year. Mm-hmm. When we first introduced our PEDs to the ASEAN member countries last year during the Senior Economic Officials Retreat. So for Malaysia, we had to explain why we came up with these PEDs. But in the ASEAN spirit, usually all ASEAN member countries will try their very best to support any PEDs that the chair develops. However, when we go deep into the areas of each PED, when we come up with a concept note, this is where intensive discussions will be held at the senior economic officials level. And if needed any guidance, that's where we bring it up to the ministers. So this is the process that we go through ASEAN, where we have intensive discussions, and we will try to get policy guidance from the ministers.
Now, Doctor, when it comes to challenges you've already mentioned, what about moving forward? Seeing that we have the challenges, we foresee the challenges, what about moving forward? What is Malaysia's preparation to the 57th ASEAN meeting in September 2025 and leaders meeting?
Okay, towards the preparation, one of it, of course, is to finalize all our PDs, hopefully by the second summit that will happen in October. But for the 56 AEM, we have actually outlined various other issues that we need to discuss in terms of how do we improve our dialogue relations with our dialogue partners. So usually during the 56 AEM, this is where we will have a few of our dialogue partners who will come and have meetings with us. So this is how we see how we can further improve our relations, and how can we benefit both from the perspective of ASEAN as well as the perspective of our dialogue partners. And in terms of AEM as well, apart from that, for the Leaders Summit and also for AEM, we have a lot of side events that MITI is actually organizing. I think it's important for us to highlight that we will be working closely with Fortune during the Leaders Summit in May. And also we'll be having an ASEAN Women Economic Summit. So for this year, very important is the agenda on youth and women as well. We've had a few youth forums that we've organized since last year, and this year we'll be having two big women agenda as well. So this will be held, the women agenda as well as with Fortune will be held during the first summit. And at the second summit, we'll be working closely with Bloomberg as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a business summit.
Wow.
Yeah, so and then we also have ASEAN Business Investment Summit. Wow. So this is all organized by MITI together with our collaborators.
Well, we love the fact that all of us are collaborating with each other, and hopefully that we can finish this within the end of this year, or probably even earlier. Now, thank you so much, and that's all the time that we have for today's edition of Biz ASEAN. Thank you very much to our guest, Dr. S.SHANMUGAN from MITI, for coming. And of course, once again, Biz Malaysia airs every Monday through Thursday via Berita RTM and TV1, in addition to Facebook Live and also YouTube Biz Malaysia. I'm Otto Othman. Thanks for watching, and see you again.